So we were going to be going over the process of getting estimates in the system. So first one I wanted to show you was the part about creating your estimates. So the first part of it is what you're going to find is going to be under your UB admin. So on the left-hand side, you'll see my utility billing, and I'll collapse some of this so it kind of gets rid of all the clutter. So the UB admin, and then I'm having it as a tree view. I'm going to go under system information. And then under system information, you'll see that I have a groups and income centers tab. So I'll select that. And then the next part I want to do is the service. So your service, you may have a service or a service two, maybe you have an irrigation. These are going to be your service or your options that have a meter on them because those are the ones that we want to do the estimates on. We want to do an estimate reading. So for this demonstration, I only have just one option, and that's going to be my service. And whenever you select it, you'll see an estimates down at the bottom that I can select. So I'll hit estimates. It's going to show me these different options here. Shaena, did you want to kind of go over these into detail at any point? I wasn't sure if you wanted to talk about these, drilling down into them exactly.
We definitely wanted to make sure that all the customers would understand that this is where you set up and allow your system to do estimates, and then what are the criteria for the estimates. And so here is where Alex is showing you get into the setup for each of the groups. And yes, Alex, if you don't mind, I think it would be good just a very quick brief what the different sections of the screen are. And if you do not have the check in the box that says estimates allowed, you will not be able to use the next feature, which is the actual the system doing estimates for you or estimated reading for you. So I'll go ahead and let Alex go on.
And on this next section here, the estimates allowed, I believe that means right here you see that we have the normal if available is 3, and the minimum required is 3. What that means is it's going to look at the previous readings, the past 3 readings, and it's going to look for a minimum of 3. Some people might have just 1 on there, but it's going to look at the past 3 and use them as an average. Now, if they don't have if they don't fit that criteria, you can use this default usage so that every time if they don't meet this criteria, maybe it's a new account or a new service location with a new meter, you may want to put a default usage of just an average, and so we could put in 4,000 is what I have right here. And then you'll see a usage for last year, and what that means is it's going to use what the usage was last year. And again, this is tied to the service location. So if this is a service location for some other person, but last year they may not have been, it might have been someone else that was at that location, it's going to use that usage what it was last year here. The multimeter estimates allowed, I haven't really used that one as much, so Shaena, you might need to discuss that one a little more. I believe that would be if you have just multiple meters on one service, though.
That's correct. If you have multiple meters, it says, yes, I'm allowing you to do estimates on multiple meters if they are on a service location.
Okay, yeah, that was one I was a little fuzzy on. And next one I wanted to talk about, now that we have this set up here, I have my estimates are allowed. I do want them to have available. I have a default that I want to use. So what I want to do next is I want to go over to my reading maintenance, and this is where I can go in and see the estimates. So for this example, I created 2 different ones. I created one where I've actually applied the readings for an estimate, and I just went ahead and did an entire book. I went ahead and did 2 different ones. I have all of book 12 and all of book 21. If I wanted to just add in a book, I can go up here and hit estimate, and then I can select the book that I want to use. I can say 20, for instance, and then when I hit OK, it's going to create that. It's going to pull all the meters in that book, and then you'd be able to see them in your edit reading file. And it'll say that I have 954 for my book 12, so 954 are going to display down here. There they are. And then you can see right here these readings it pulled in as well. So I'll see that I have an estimate of the checkbox means that it was estimated. So you may have seen this before, where let's say you have your entire reading come through, and maybe you didn't get all of them. Maybe there's 5 of them that you need to go in and set as estimate. You could go into any one of these other ones, and then if you'd see this as unchecked, and you say, well, I don't know what the actual reading is, so I'll just hit estimate and save, and it'll do the estimate. You'd use that same method that we looked at earlier on system information, and it'd apply the reading or the usage that way. So that is when it comes to creating these these estimates, is just going in using this estimate button, and then you can select your specific book that you want to use or your reading group. Either one of those, you'll see over here that there's a reading group we can use as well if you have any. I don't have any on this database though, or I can just do just the book. Um, and typically you would see that, whereas if there is a certain area or maybe someone's sick and is not able to do the readings, but you need to go ahead and get some readings in there right away. Or in most cases, though, you would have it to where you've gotten all these other readings, but there's maybe just a few that you don't have. So in either case, you can go in and make sure that checkbox is checked for that person. Go ahead.
Alex, if you don't mind, we've been getting some support calls where customers are saying because of the COVID-19, the situation that they're in, they either can't read a person's meter because it actually might be inside the customer's house in their basement. So that's one reason we're seeing a lot of calls about this is they're in places that they never have estimated before. And so this is all a new concept. Again, based on the setup that Alex showed you how to do, customer support can help you, guide you through some of those best practices and help you through this. Or if you'd like to get a hold of professional services, we can also do some WebEx time with you guys to assist you in this process, to help you through the first time that you do this, because this might be new to you guys. Again, like Alex said, a lot of times customers will use the estimate just to pick up the readings they couldn't get. Radios are bad, or they, if it's manual readings, a car was parked on top of a meter pit maybe. But now you may have the need to estimate a whole book or all of your books. And so you can use this tool as well to do that, to read all of your meters, to give them all an estimated reading based on what Alex has shown so far.
The next thing I wanted to show you, and I want to go ahead and do just a verify apply to show you what it's going to look like, was just showing you what the billing process, kind of how it's affected by this. So when we go over here and do like a verify apply, it's going to pop up my window. It gives me my options for my reports. It's going to kind of give me my estimated total of what everything is going to be. But one key thing on there is that you have all these numbers that are up here on the top right part of that box. It's decided to slow down on me today. I was doing it smooth earlier. There we go. So right here I have all my different reports that I wanted to populate. One thing I wanted to show you over here, though, is we have under the summary, we have our summary of customers. Shows us how many meters we have, how many zero usages we have. Now, zero usages doesn't mean that, that should have pulled in 4,000. Maybe that was because it's using the last 3 were 0, so that's why this one continued on as zero usage as well. So that's why some of those are like that. You may see some warnings in there, and that's okay. It's usually when you have errors that you have to go back and recheck things. But you'll notice right here your estimates. This shows you how many estimates. So if I'm doing an entire book, if I'm saying, okay, this entire book, I want to do the billing or apply charges to them, I'm going to see that if they're all estimated, I'll see 954, and then I'll see an estimated 954 as well there. And of course, you won't be seeing your average days like that. That's going to be that's just because of my database. So you'll see some of our standard reports that we have here, and it should pull up about 3 of them. One thing I was going to show you is that on one of the reports, is that it's going to show you some warnings. And those warnings are just going to let you know, so there's one that's like a missing meter. So that one would need to be fixed. Now this one is where you'll see like your high and your low, things like that. So if it's above your limit, high limit, or below, those aren't necessarily to be worried about. You can still continue and charge that customer. But whenever you're using that default number, maybe for that customer, that's an abnormal number. And so some of those might pull in. So you see I have a 4,000 here. The previous reading was 0, and then they all of a sudden jumped to 4,000. Well, that's a little higher than they normally would. So you might see some of those like this. And I just kind of wanted to point those out to you so you don't get scared when you look up and see this warning report. And then you'll see all of these usages as well. And these are all estimated. And those are just your standard reports, the ones that you usually get. Now, the main thing is that you want to see, when you look at your customer on that customer's page, you want to be able to see how they, so if you go in and say, well, I want to know, was this customer estimated before? What was that noise? Oops. Shaena, did you say something? I got a raised hand that popped in.
Shaena, you raised your hand. Oh, no matter.
Oh. So on your customer side, you can actually see on the customer side that it was set to estimated before. So I'm going to go over to my customer. It's taking me a minute again. I have sharing Wi-Fi with a bunch of people, so it's probably getting a little slow. Now, if I want to look for that usage, I'm going to go to my customer, and I'm going to go over to transactions, non-financial, and then there's going to be a usage option. And your usage is going to say your different options of estimated. It's right here. And you'll see that I have 2 lines, and that's because on my service location, I only have 2 rate codes. So for each rate code, it's going to say that it was estimated. So I'll have my flat fee, the SS fee, and then my water usage. It'll let me know that for this date, this usage was estimated. And I'll show you over here on the service location that is, I can confirm that is the only rate codes that I have is these 2 right here. Now, if I want to look at it on the meter side, I'll go over to my meter. I can either do that through the customer or the service location, either one. So on the customer side, I can go over to service location. And it's still running a little slow. Service location. And then I can drop down my water service, and I can hit to go to my meter that way. Or I can go to my service location, and then under connections, I can go over and hit my meter that's down here. And it'll pull up that meter that's attached to that customer at that service location. And so by default, it's going to open up to your general option. And so I'm going to hit edit readings, and I can go over and see all of my readings, and I can see that here's what my reading was with the estimate, and I can show that yes, it was estimated when I took that reading, and it was charged. So when we look at that customer and look at their balance, we can see they had a charge right here. It was on 4/9/20, and that was an estimated charge. But it won't show up as estimated on the actual charge here. We have to drill down into that usage to find it. All right, and that was it for me. Did we want to pass that on to Nathan now?
Okay. Before I get started on this crazy-looking PDF here, I kind of wanted to piggyback on something that Alex was saying. So I did see where he showed you guys how to click the estimate button and estimate an entire book, but you may not, and you may have explained this, and I may have just missed it, but I will make sure that I reiterate it. That you may not want to estimate an entire book range. You may have gotten your reading file in, but you're missing a few, and like say the case that Shaena was saying, that you can't go into the house because they're sick, or because you can't get to the meter by whatever reason. But you got the reading file in for that book, but you only have a few that you want to estimate. Then you can come into the reading file, and you can add these customers in the way you would normally in a manual process. And once you add, let's pull somebody in here. And once you come over here and click the estimate button, it will give them an estimation based on what you have set up as default. And then you can change the date to whatever you want that to be. And then you can do this for everybody who you want to estimate individually without estimating the entire book range. Like I said, you may have touched on that, Alex, and I apologize if I'm reiterating myself. Another thing that I wanted to touch on is your bills. I think that our standard bill forms do not show a reading as estimated on the bill themselves. That's in a standard capacity. You may have a bill form that's not standard that may show that or may not show that. If you need to know that, if you need to find that out, let us know. I'll be glad to let you know if you wanted to show the current reading on the bill form as estimated. Now, I guess what I want to get into is kind of the guts of everything, kind of behind the scenes of it. What happens in the system when the estimate process is done. So let's say that you have estimated a particular customer 4 or 5 times in the last 4 or 5 months. You've just not been able to get to the reading for some reason. The MXU's been dead. You just couldn't get the reading for whatever reason. So you've been forced to estimate this person for 4 or 5 times. What that's going to do is going to look at the previous 3 good readings based on Alex's defaults that he had on his screen. It's going to look at the previous good readings and use those as an estimate, and to kind of forward that estimation based on its best guess as to what the usage is. But once you finally get to the reading and you have a good read, then our system has to know, how do we handle this reading? If you've undercharged them or if you overcharged them. So if you've undercharged them, once you apply a new good reading, basically a new good reading is the system determines that by the estimate box is not checked for that reading. Then if you've undercharged them, then it's just going to charge them whatever the last usage was to the new good usage. The last estimated usage was to the new good usage. It's going to kind of catch up with the dollar amount there. If you have overcharged them through these last 4 or 5 months, then this is kind of where this comes into play. So, and if anybody on the line would like to get a copy of this, please let us know. We'll be glad to send it to you. Basically, it's a little bit of a flow chart. So the system says, okay, is the new reading real, and was the previous estimate? If yes, then let's move on. If no, then go ahead and use the regular charge. So basically, the last read is real, the new read is real. Great, normal charges, keep going the way you normally do. But if the last read was estimated and the new read was real, then we start going through this list of things to try to figure out exactly how much, what we need to do based on what your rate codes are set up with, based on how many readings are estimated, then what you charge them, and then even if you have changed your rates in the middle of this, so let's say in the 4 or 5 months that you have estimated this person, you increased your rates on a couple of things or across the board. It's going to be typically the same way that we handle if you normally change your rate in the middle of a cycle. It's going to use the new rate as the current charge, but it is going to take in consideration what you charged them previously. And then if you have overcharged them based on the amount of usage and the dollars that were charged, it will give a credit back to the account if there's one to give. So basically that's it in a nutshell as far as how the system handles it. We can get very much more granular if you'd like, but we're running out a bit of a time for this this webinar, and I kind of want to save some time for questions and answers. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there and turn it back over to Kayla.
Thank you. And you can leave up your screen, actually, if you would like, just in case we have some questions on it. We did have 2 questions come in, and one asked saying that they didn't have, this is referring to you, Alex, they didn't have all the screens that you were looking at whenever you were doing the presentation. And so she was wondering if it was a permission issue or maybe a version issue.
Now, which screens would you be referring to? Like the system information part?
Maybe she can reach back out and ask me, but all I had was I don't have all the screens. Is this a permission issue?
I would say more than likely it's permission issue, especially when it comes to system information. That's more of an admin level setup. So it could be that those just haven't been, have some people are restricted on that area. Now your customer, your service location, your meter, typically those are ones that you will have access to. Again, for those that don't work in the reading and maintenance area, which I assume most of you do, some people might have that. So I know you may restrict, some admins might restrict some of their users from seeing the reading maintenance because they may not want their warehouse people that are doing work orders or stuff like that to see that screen. But the system information is more times than not usually an admin level only. So they would have to go in and add it. So that would be down. So the admin would have to go in and change it under system administration. So on Nathan's screen right now, it's down there at the bottom under user security, which again, an admin would have to change this. And then under groups, they would select who they want to add that to, what groups they want to add that to. And your IT will know who's on what Active Directory group as well.
Yeah. And then another question is, and I think this is going to you, Nathan, is how do we create the file if we were unable to retrieve any readings?
How do you create the file if you're unable to retrieve any readings? Well, normally, if you want to create a reading file, you just come up here. You'll come to Reading Maintenance, and you'll hit the green plus, and this will start the creation of the file. You need to have at least one person in here for it to save. So let's go ahead and add in a customer, and let's go ahead and estimate him. And I'm going to go ahead and save, say yes, and then we've created the reading file. Now, the other way is to do it the way that Alex showed you. If you want to estimate the entire book, then you can just click the estimate button here. Move this over here. And you can choose by reading group if you have it, or book and sequence. Then you'll hit OK, and it'll bring everybody in that book range or by the book and sequence. Those are the only, other than use last, which nobody really uses. That's the only other way I can think of adding the reading file if you didn't have the readings. Coming from a customer support background, first thing I would ask you is, why didn't you get the readings? You know, what happened? You know, so maybe there's another issue that we need to follow down the rabbit trail in, but that should be the base answer I'd give.
All right. Does anyone else have any questions? And did that answer your question on the readings? Yes, that did answer it. So great job, Nathan.
Awesome.
And again, you know, if you have a question that comes to mind afterwards, you can email any one of us to check in. And then, hey, Nathan, can you send me the document so I can send that to the customers?
I certainly can.
Excellent. Yeah, so I will definitely include this as an attachment in the email I send everyone with the link for the recording as well. We are so grateful to each and every one of you guys. Our intention is to be available and present and try to help as much as possible.